Now, speaking of security, Israeli security officials arriving in the United States for high-level talks about Iran. Mossad Chief Yossi Cohen among the delegates, reiterating to United States President Biden that returning to the JCPOA nuclear deal would be nothing short of a mistake, unless the deal were drastically improved. Biden, meanwhile, saying that Washington is not too close to returning to the deal just yet, but is already considering huge rollbacks of some of the Trump-era sanctions imposed on Tehran as an incentive to get closer. Sanctions like those tied to terrorism, missile development, human rights abuses, and even their nuclear program. And joining me now with more is political analyst, American foreign policy expert, and professor at the State University of New York Maritime College, Mark Meirowitz. Mark, it's a pleasure to have you back. Thank you so much. So is the Biden administration close to negotiating a deal or not? We've been hearing many conflicting reports.
Well, I wasn't a fly in the room and I didn't hear the discussion, but as I understand it, Yossi Cohen was discussing issues with Jake Sullivan and our national security advisor, and President Biden stopped by to give his condolences on Iran and then talked about this issue. So it wasn't a set-up meeting with the president. Here's the thing. Biden has said he wants to do this deal. And we've seen in the first 100 days that when Biden says he wants to do something, he actually goes ahead and does it. The only thing is, America is a divided government in terms of separation of powers and checks and balances. So you hear different messages from different parts of the government. The Director of National Intelligence just issued a threat assessment listing the biggest threats in the world from China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. Okay. At the Congress, when you have these hearings on Iran, you hear a lot of worry on the part of the Congress. Yet, if he wants to replicate what happened the last time, which is what he's doing, Biden is going to push forward with this deal. Now, we see that a little bit already because, we even see the way it's being negotiated is not to the benefit of the United States. The United States sits in a separate room. The other negotiators are sitting with Iran, China, Russia, the Europeans. The Chinese are the spokespersons. Can you imagine? The Americans are not even directly in the room. So we're already at a disadvantage here.
So do you think,
Iranians have said,
Well, I'm sorry. So do you think that the Biden administration's approach to Iran is worse than Obama's and Trump's, or how does it compare?
Right. So, Obama's approach, I think, was flawed because there was no verification. The deal sundowns, it ends after a certain number of years. And the biggest point was there were areas like the military bases which were off limits. And as you said earlier, what about these points about terrorism, ballistic missiles, and all the involvement of Iran in Yemen and all of these things, though, these don't seem to be in the mix. So it's not as flawed as Obama. Trump's approach, you asked, was very, very strong. Perhaps some feel in retrospect was too strong, but it was strong and put us in a position now where the Iranians are going to sit down and negotiate, right? But all the incentives to negotiate are gone because the United States has already indicated it wants to do the deal. And it has even put the same people in place to negotiate it, like Wendy Sherman, who negotiated the Obama deal. So, as they say in French, maybe there's an Israeli expression, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. As things change, they're just the same again. We're doing the same mistaken deal. The only difference is Israel's approach, I think, is much better by having quiet discussions about it rather than having the Prime Minister go to the Congress about it. The President Obama at that time didn't like that.
So, Mark, is that the key to success, or what is the key to success in trying to end Tehran's nuclear breakout once and for all?
So, if I knew the answer to that, I would be obviously quite a prophet, perhaps. So, the answer is the strength is the thing that the Iranians respect. The sanctions were very effective. They brought us actually to the point where we are. And now what we're doing is we're stepping back and not using the advantage of those sanctions. In fact, we're kind of doing a reverse game here. Iran has said, oh, you must release the sanctions before I'm going to do a deal with you. That is backwards. The way to do the deal is to say, we're going to increase the sanctions. We're going to continue to do what we're doing. But Biden wants to make the deal. As we said before, despite the fact that there's divided opinions in our government about this issue and about the risk to the United States of a nuclear Iran, Biden is moving ahead full steam, despite the reports that we heard from the meeting.
All right, Mark Meirowitz, thank you so much again for meeting with us.
My pleasure.